The story kicks off way back in the day when the world was completely run by gods, spirits, and magic users. The ultimate demon lord, Leonis Death Magnus, ruled over the entire capital of Necrozoa with an iron fist. But then, an all-out war broke out, and 6 legendary heroes stormed right into his city to put an end to his reign of terror. After the heroes took down every single one of his top generals, Leonis was absolutely furious. He could not believe that humans, who he viewed as nothing more than bugs and ants, actually had the guts to stand up to him. He was ready to unleash his dark fire and burn them all to a crisp, but the heroes pushed him to his absolute limits. With his army practically wiped out, he remembered a promise he made to Roselia, the goddess of darkness. Realizing this was the end of the line for now, he decided to take the loss. He cast an undead sealing spell, vowing to wake up in 1,000 years to take his throne back. And just like that, the era of the demon lord Leonis came to an end. Fast forward 1,000 years, and the world is completely different. We are now in an era driven by modern science and technology. 2 young girls are checking out a ruined area that had been hidden away from the world for years until a massive earthquake exposed it. They are down there looking for any signs of creatures known as voids, trying to figure out if this place is one of their nests. By the time they reach the 7th floor underground, they still have not run into anything magical. Wearing earpieces to stay in touch with headquarters, they keep exploring and eventually stumble across some completely scorched statues that are incredibly old. It is pretty obvious this place used to be a royal palace. Then, they find this massive door radiating magical energy. The top of the gate is covered in some ancient language that modern tech cannot even begin to decode. The girls split up to cover more ground. The girl named Roselia gets this weird feeling like she has seen this writing somewhere before. The second she touches the door, it just swings wide open on its own. Roselia goes on high alert, but suddenly, the room lights up completely. Right in front of her is a massive crystal, and she realizes someone is trapped inside it. For some reason, the tech strapped to her belt just completely dies. Inside the crystal, the sleeping demon lord Leonis is flashing back to the day he made his promise to Roselia. He knew his power would awaken in the form of a human child after 1,000 years, and he had accepted his defeat back then just to keep that promise. Knowing Roselia went far away after that, Leonis finally opens his eyes. Seeing Roselia trying to break the crystal, he uses a language spell to figure out what she is saying. Assuming this girl is just a common thief, Leonis decides to hand out a death sentence right then and there. He shatters the magical barrier crystal completely. The blast knocks Roselia to the ground, leaving her stunned for a minute. When Leonis gets a good look at her, he is totally blown away by how gorgeous she is. Still, being a demon lord, he cannot go back on his word and figures he has to take her out. But before he can make a move, Roselia opens her eyes and asks what a little kid is doing all the way down there. Leonis looks at himself and realizes his reincarnation ritual totally glitched out. Instead of his true form, he is stuck in the body of a kid, specifically the human form he had back when he was known as a hero. Roselia asks him how he ended up locked inside that crystal. Seeing a scared little kid, her maternal instincts kick into overdrive, and she immediately pulls him into a tight hug. Leonis is super offended, thinking a demon lord like him should never be treated like a baby. But honestly, her chest is so soft that he ends up falling right asleep. A little while later, Roselia offers him something to eat. Leonis realizes he cannot taste food the same way he used to, and he complains about how totally useless his new human body is. The fact that he literally passed out just from being hungry is a huge embarrassment for a demon lord. Deep down, though, he definitely enjoyed how Roselia was holding him, and he knows she is just trying to keep him safe. She introduces herself properly as Roselia Ray Cristalia, a 15-year-old swordswoman currently training at the Excalibur Academy in the 7th Assault Garden. Since she already assumes he is just a kid, Leonis rolls with it and tells her he is 10 years old. Leonis drops his full name, Leonis Death Magnus, feeling super confident that his legendary terrifying reputation has been passed down through the generations. He expects her to be trembling in fear, but Roselia has absolutely no clue who he is. Instead, she just tells him his name is cute. She assumes some kidnappers must have locked him away down in these ruins and is surprised he does not know anything about their real enemies. Meanwhile, in another part of the ruins, her maid Regina spots something dangerous and immediately draws her weapon. It turns out these monsters, known as voids, first showed up 64 years ago, and even now, humanity has absolutely no idea what they are or what they actually want. There are a ton of theories floating around, and some even say these monsters come from a completely different world. When Leonis finds out that voids usually show up in ancient ruins, he realizes he forgot to ask the most important question. He asks her what year it is according to the Holy God calendar, guessing it has to be somewhere around 1447. Riselia is totally clueless about the Holy God calendar and explains that, according to the human calendar, it is the year 64. Suddenly, the entire place starts shaking violently. Regina radios in to report that a massive void has been spotted. Riselia immediately pulls Leonis close to cover him, promising she will keep him safe. Leonis feels a really weird sensation. His new 10-year-old body's hormones are definitely acting up. Smashing through the debris, a terrifying void appears right in front of them. Riselia tries to attack, but her hits do absolutely nothing to the beast. Leonis decides to step up and wipe the thing out in a single strike, but his clothes are about 6 sizes too big, causing him to trip and fall flat on his face. The void is just about to crush them when Regina swoops in out of nowhere. Armed with some serious firepower, she blasts the creature and deals massive damage. The first thing she does is look at Leonis and ask who the heck this kid is. Riselia quickly says the boy is under her protection and promises to explain the whole crazy situation later. Regina then commands her weapon, which she calls a holy sword, to shift its form. Leonis watches her closely and quickly realizes that this power is not magic at all. Despite taking such a heavy hit, the giant void is incredibly still standing. Even Leonis is a little surprised by how tough it is. Since Riselia does not have a special weapon of her own yet, Regina yells at her to get out of there immediately. Putting Leonis' safety first, Riselia grabs him and sprints away from the fight. Poor Demon Lord. Absolutely nothing is going according to his master plan. His reincarnation magic totally glitched out. He is stuck in a ridiculously weak human body. The world has changed so much, he has no clue how to rebuild his kingdom. And to make matters worse, these ugly bug creatures have completely overrun his castle. Suddenly, a small crystal in their path rapidly grows into a massive, terrifying new void, and this one looks way stronger than the last. Riselia screams at Leonis to run away and draws her regular sword to face the monster alone. Unlike Regina, she does not have a holy sword to fall back on. Leonis figures he should probably show off a tiny fraction of his power, since there is no way this girl can take down a void by herself. But just as he is about to cast a spell, Riselia violently shoves him out of the way, taking a brutal, direct hit from the monster. She collapses, critically injured. Even as she lies there dying, all she cares about is keeping him safe. She begs Leonis to run and find Regina so he can get to a secure place. With her dying breath, she actually apologizes for failing to protect him. Looking down at her, Leonis feels a genuine pang of sadness. He calls her a foolish girl, realizing she threw herself into the line of fire because she honestly thought he could not dodge it. This triggers a flashback to when Leonis was just a human on the brink of death. Back then, the goddess Rosalia saved him and asked him to join her. Snapping back to the present, a whole pack of powerful voids completely surrounds Leonis. They launch a relentless attack, but they cannot even put a scratch on his magical shield. Leonis is absolutely furious. He pulls out his magical staff, admitting to himself that the girl was incredibly brave and that he actually started to like her. After all, he had spared her life earlier, just to gather intel. With zero mercy, Leonis unleashes a brutal slaughter on every single void in the room. Looking at the charred remains of one he hit with a flame blast, he notices its bones actually survived the fire. That had never happened before, proving that his magic in this new body is significantly weaker than it used to be. Normally, a demon lord could not care less about a random human life, but Riselia put her own life on the line to save his. Leonis does not have any healing magic, but he does know a highly forbidden spell. He casts it on Reselia, and her spilled blood literally flows right back into her body. Her eyes flash a brilliant red, and a unique crest forms on her thigh. Leonis knows he just did something totally insane, and she is probably going to be furious when she finds out what he turned her into. Meanwhile, Regina finally manages to defeat the other void. She tries radioing Reselia over her earpiece, but gets dead air. Leonie is sitting right next to Reselia's body, casually trying to figure out how her communication device works. Suddenly, Reselia gasps awake. The very first thing she does is pull Leonis into a tight, panicked hug, frantically checking to make sure he is okay. Leonis is genuinely shocked that Reselia is more worried about him than herself. Reselia checks her own body for wounds and is completely bewildered that she is still breathing. Leonis quickly lies, claiming he used healing magic to save her. This just confuses Reselia even more. Leonis is baffled. How do these people not know what magic is? Have humans really become entirely dependent on advanced technology? Reselia asks him if his magic is some kind of holy sword power, which leaves poor Leonis totally clueless. She explains that some books at her academy mention rare holy swords that possess healing abilities. When Leonis asks what a holy sword actually is, Reselia breaks it down for him. It is a mysterious power that awakened inside humans so they could fight back against the voids. When the voids first invaded, kids suddenly started developing these powers, which usually took the physical form of weapons, earning them the name holy swords. Regina, for example, wields a dragon-type holy sword. Humanity still does not know a whole lot about them, but it seems a person's holy sword depends heavily on their personality. Reselia has not awakened her holy sword yet, which is exactly why she has to rely on her magical tech devices in combat. Right around then, Regina finally catches up with them. Seeing the destruction, she asks if they ran into a void. That jogs Reselia's memory, and she frantically asks Leonis what happened to the monster. Leonis plays dumb, saying he just got terrified, squeezed his eyes shut, and when he opened them again, the void was magically gone. With the immediate danger past, they pack up and take Leonis with them. On the way, it is revealed that Regina is actually Reselia's personal maid. As they walk, Leonis cannot help but stare at Regina's bouncing chest. Catching the 10-year-old kid staring, Regina jokes that this boy is growing up way too fast. After a long trek, they finally arrive at the 7th Assault Garden, humanity's ultimate stronghold built to survive the void threat. Looking at this massive fortress, Leonis wonders if this is really what the world has become after 1,000 years. Suddenly, the story flashes back 6 years. The 3rd Assault Garden was in a desperate fight for survival against a massive void invasion. A younger Reselia and Regina were huddled in a civilian shelter, completely terrified. Even so, Reselia tried to keep Regina's spirits up, assuring her that her father was out there fighting the voids and that humanity would definitely win. People had been evacuated to safety ahead of time, but the violent tremors from the battle outside were shaking the shelter and terrifying everyone inside. Trying to stay strong, Reselia promised that once she awakened her own holy sword, she would protect Regina, her people, and the entire Assault Garden. She kept rambling about all the fun things they would do once the war was over, just trying to keep them both calm. But as the situation outside visibly deteriorated, Reselia started to panic. Her father, mother, and sister were all out there on the front lines, and she desperately wanted to be out there fighting alongside them. She told Regina that her family never loses and that everything would be totally fine. When the brutal war finally ended and the survivors were allowed out, the reality was absolutely devastating. The 3rd Assault Garden was completely wiped off the map. Out of the entire population, only about 15 people survived the massacre, including Reselia and Regina. Every single one of the 1,000 swordsmen who went out to fight had been killed in action. Reselia was completely shattered. She broke down and apologized to Regina for lying, crying over her false promise that everything would be okay. Snapping back to the present day, the group is standing on the massive bridge connecting to the 7th Assault Garden, the place they now call home, and the city Reselia has sworn to protect. Thinking back on her past, Reselia quietly promises herself that she will never lie again. Looking out at the colossal structure sitting right in the middle of the ocean, Leonis is blown away and asks how they managed to build an island that massive. Actually, it is not an island at all. It is basically a massive ship that can move from place to place across the ocean. Reselia reports in to headquarters, and Regina is totally impressed to hear they made it out alive. Reselia also shows off the wound that Leonis healed. It turns out Regina initially thought Leonis was just one of the refugees who fled from the war zone. When the Voids first attacked, a lot of people were forced to abandon the battlefield and run for their lives, and tracking down those survivors is actually one of their main missions. Anyway, starting today, Leonis will be staying right here at Excalibur Academy. Regina heads out to go grocery shopping for dinner, while Reselia tells Leonis to go through a specific newcomer processing door. She then heads toward a different exit to take care of her own things. Leonis is absolutely losing his mind right now because every single one of his plans is falling apart. His original goal was to rebuild his army and wipe humanity off the face of the earth. But now, humans have advanced way past what he expected, and to top it all off, these void monsters have entered the picture. But the absolute worst part is that he is stuck in the body of a little kid. Feeling desperate, he summons his old loyal servants, Blackus and Sherry. It has been 1,000 years since they last saw their master. Blackus immediately asks what on earth happened to his body. Leonis explains that his reincarnation spell glitched out, leaving him stuck in the human form he had before he became a demon lord. This is actually the first time Blackus is seeing Leonis in his human hero form, since they originally met after Leonis had already taken the demon lord mantle. Sherry, on the other hand, thinks Leonis looks incredibly adorable in this form, and she is visibly blushing. Leonis gets annoyed, thinking she is making fun of him, which prompts her to quickly apologize. Leonis fills his servants in on this massive artificial island built by humans, mentioning that it is called the 7th Assault Garden. He figures that means there are at least 6 other giant floating cities, just like this one out there. Humans, who used to be so weak, have evolved a ton compared to the past. To rebuild his demon army, they need to figure out exactly how strong humanity has become. So he orders Blackus and Sherry to start gathering intel on the city. He strictly forbids them from using any magic, pointing out that people in this era have completely forgotten that magic even exists. Leonis explains that he is going to blend in with the human soldiers at the academy. He needs food, clothes, and a place to stay. So crashing here is his best move for now. Sherry immediately pouts because she desperately wants to be the one taking care of her cute little demon lord. Eventually, Leonis sends them back to the shadows and walks through the security gate where newcomers are scanned. He is almost busted right then and there because of his intense magical aura, but he manages to suppress his magic just in the nick of time. Leonis gets his ID, and Reselia snaps a picture of him so she can get him registered for the Holy Sword examination. This exam is going to be a huge problem for him, considering the registration requires him to list his Holy Sword powers, which he obviously does not possess. While Reselia is showing him around the academy, Leonis notices how incredibly peaceful the city feels, even though they are practically on the front lines. The reason for the calm is that the Holy Swordsmen are stationed all along the perimeter, making sure no void ever breaches the city walls. Once they arrive at Excalibur Academy, Reselia points out the city's military center. Usually, anyone seeing it for the first time is completely blown away, but Leonis does not give her the shocked reaction she expects. Reselia did not see a shocked reaction on Leonis' face, but honestly, he was totally mind-blown. He had never seen anything that massive back in his era. Reselia then gives Leonis a grand tour of the Academy's various facilities, showing off the huge library, the classrooms, and a bunch of other cool spots. Leonis had never even heard of half of these things before. While she is showing him the arena where his exam will be held tomorrow, Reselia suddenly feels incredibly weak and drops to her knees. She quickly brushes it off, saying she is totally fine and just needs to get some rest so she can get back to training. She is determined to awaken her holy sword as soon as possible. Leonis thinks to himself that she is absolutely right. There is basically no point in a girl being at this academy if she does not even have a holy sword. As they keep walking around the campus, they pass through the girls' dormitory area. Leonis happens to overhear 2 girls chatting. jokingly saying that a kid exactly like him is going to become the next Demon Lord. Leonis freezes in shock for a second, but quickly reassures himself that it is just a crazy coincidence. There is no way they actually know his true identity. Right then, a student named Musil struts up to Riselia, acting all high and mighty. Just seeing his face completely ruins Riselia's mood. Musil immediately starts mocking her about missing today's mission, loudly claiming that she is dragging her prestigious family's name through the mud. Riselia clearly does not want to deal with his nonsense and tries to walk away with Leonis, but Musil blocks her path, calling her baby and asking who the little loser she is dragging around is. Trying to act tough, Musil laughs out loud and tells Riselia that since she is completely useless in a real fight, she might as well stick to babysitting. Musil then offers Riselia a spot in his platoon. He tells her not to worry, saying he would not just kick her to the curb since she comes from a famous holy swordsman bloodline. He basically tells her that even if she never awakens her holy sword, it is totally fine. She would not ever have to go on a dangerous mission as long as she stays by his side and keeps him entertained. Leonis notices that all the girls trailing behind Musil have completely blank, dead looks in their eyes. He figures they are under some sort of mind control magic, which is probably the specific power of Musil's holy sword. Riselia flat out rejects his creepy offer and tries to leave. Musil's ego takes a massive hit, and he aggressively grabs Riselia's hair, yanking her back. That is when Leonis completely loses it. He glares right at Musil, and just one terrifying look from the Demon Lord makes Musil's legs shake so badly that he drops straight to his knees. Leonis leans in and whispers a chilling threat, telling him that if he even looks at her beautiful hair again, he is dead. Terrified, Musil scrambles back and immediately summons his holy sword. But before a fight can even break out, a girl steps in and yells at Musil. She scolds him for trying to use a holy sword over some personal beef and demands to know what he is even doing in the girls' dorm area, sarcastically asking if he identifies as a girl now. Scared out of his mind, Musil tucks his tail and runs off. Leonis just smirks to himself, knowing the guy wanted a fight but could not have laid a finger on him anyway. The girl who stepped in is Elfin, the intelligence analyst in charge of Riselia's platoon. She has already heard the crazy story about how they found Leonis out in the ruins. Leonis stares at the floating spheres hovering around her, realizing they are her holy sword. Elfin tells Riselia about some fresh clothes she managed to arrange for her and apologizes for missing their mission earlier today. She explains that they were completely swamped because they detected some unnatural magic out in the ocean sector. They tried their best to investigate it, but they still do not have a lot of solid details. She is right in the middle of explaining this when Riselia suddenly starts passing out again. By the evening, they finally make it back to their dorms. Leonis points out that this building looks totally different from all the fancy ones they passed on the way here. Riselia's place is actually pretty old and run down. It turns out that dorm assignments are strictly based on a platoon's overall combat performance. They check on Regina in her room, but the poor girl is already passed out asleep. Using a holy sword completely drains a user's stamina, leaving them totally wiped out. Since it is such an old building, none of the rooms even have locks on the doors. Leonis asks if it is really okay for a guy to be staying in the girls' dorms. Riselia brushes it off, saying it is not a big deal at all since he is just a little kid. She points out where the bathroom is and tells him to go freshen up. While Leonis is getting ready to take a shower, Riselia calls out to him, nervously asking if he would consider joining her platoon once he passes his holy sword exam tomorrow. Hearing Riselia ask if he would join her platoon, Leonis accidentally sneezes. Riselia gets all flustered and tells him to just go take his shower first and they can talk about it later. While showering, Leonis wonders if the hot water is running because of some kind of advanced magic. Just as he is rubbing soap into his hair, Riselia casually walks up right behind him, completely naked, pointing out that you are not supposed to use bar soap on your hair. Leonis completely freaks out. What the heck is he supposed to do? Where is he even supposed to look? Without skipping a beat, she just starts washing his hair with shampoo herself. Leonis thinks to himself that the people in this era are incredibly open-minded. Afterward, Riselia brings up the platoon thing again. Honestly, it is totally up to Leonis which platoon he wants to join. Since healing holy swords are super rare and valuable, even the high-ranking platoons will definitely try to recruit him, and realistically, he has absolutely zero reason to pick Ryselia's squad. Leonis straight up asks her why she keeps throwing herself into dangerous fights. Since she does not even have a holy sword, she cannot really protect anyone. She shoots that down immediately, saying she does not want people constantly protecting her and that she wants to fight her own battles. But before she can even finish her sentence, Ryselia passes out again. Leonis reactivates the magical crest on her thigh, and her eyes flash red once more. He lifts her up and lets her drink his blood, which snaps her right back to consciousness. Leonis finally comes clean and tells Ryselia the absolute truth. He does not actually have a healing holy sword, and he definitely cannot just bring dead people back to life. The harsh reality is that Ryselia Ray Crystallia actually died out there in the ruins. The story then flashes back 2 years into the past. Ryselia was pushing herself to the absolute limit, desperately trying to awaken her holy sword. She was constantly training with a regular sword, having learned her swordsmanship skills directly from her older sister, and she was convinced that her holy weapon would take the form of a blade. Regina wanted her to take a break, but suddenly, all the training machines just shut down on their own. It was Musil, showing up just to lecture Ryselia. He basically told her to stop working so hard for something that is never going to happen, asking why she was even training and telling her to just join his platoon instead. Regina immediately stepped in and pulled out her holy sword. Musil totally chickened out and bolted from the room. Regina told Ryselia that once she finally awakens her holy weapon, she will be able to wipe the floor with losers like him in a heartbeat. Stressed out, Ryselia replied that she does not even need a holy weapon to do that. Jumping back to the present day, Ryselia is fully regaining her senses. The very first thing Leonis tells her as she wakes up is that he used his magic to bring her back to her room, making sure to clarify that he did not touch her or look at her inappropriately while doing so. Ryselia asks him who in the world he actually is. He tells her he is a magician and that this is his brand new life. Back in his era, humans actually used magic, and he used his powers to bring her back to life as his vessel, explaining that it is absolutely not the same thing as their holy sword abilities. Resurrecting Ryselia as an undead was a massive gamble, but the results were incredibly spectacular. She has actually been reborn as a vampire queen, one of the most powerful undead beings to exist. He explains that she felt so sick yesterday because she was running low on magical energy, which is exactly why she ended up drinking his blood. That is just what naturally happens when a vampire's mana gets depleted. Ryselia asks him point blank if this means she really did die out there. Leonis admits he had absolutely no other way to save her life. She then opens up and tells him her backstory. During that massive void attack years ago, her entire family and tons of swordsmen fought on the front lines to protect their people, but not a single one of them made it back alive. She and Regina only survived because they were hiding safely in a civilian shelter. Excalibur Academy had sky-high expectations for her family, hoping they would produce another elite holy swordsman. That is exactly why Ryselia has been so desperate to awaken her holy sword as fast as possible so she can actually fight, and it is the whole reason she constantly volunteered for the most dangerous missions. She asks Leonis if it is even possible for her to awaken a holy sword now that she is technically dead. Leonis does not really have a solid answer for that, but he reassures her that she is already way stronger than she used to be. For Ryselia, though, that probably does not feel like enough. Right then, Leonis' stomach starts growling incredibly loud since the poor kid has not eaten a single thing since last night. Outside the room, they find Leonis' new academy uniform, which is probably what Elfin was talking about getting for him yesterday. The two of them head down to the cafeteria. Ryselia is not hungry at all, likely because she is a vampire now. Aside from bread, Leonis has never really seen this much variety of food before. Ryselia immediately starts lecturing him, telling him that just eating bread is not nearly enough nutrition. Leonis claps back, saying that kind of health advice sounds pretty ridiculous coming from an undead. That comment visibly bums Ryselia out, Anyway, Riselia says she will go ahead and order his food for him. Leonis insists on paying and confidently whips out a massive gold coin. Seeing that giant chunk of gold, Riselia is completely shell-shocked because that single coin could probably buy the entire restaurant. But then Leonis gets hit with a brutal reality check. In this modern era, gold coins are practically worthless. Apparently, Magic Force Silver is the only currency that actually holds any real value nowadays. Leonis feels totally crushed. He had hoarded mountains of gold to fund his massive demon army, and now it is all just useless metal. Over in the same restaurant, a girl wearing a kimono is getting cornered by two shady guys who are trying to shake her down for cash. She is completely broke and cannot pay them. So the guys creepily tell her that her clothes look pretty nice and actually try to strip them off her. She is not having any of it and immediately teaches them a painful physical lesson. She tells them she is a student here, so she is not going to run or hide anywhere, and tells the Xiao M to come back next week if they want their money. This girl's name is Sakuya, and it turns out she is also a member of Riselia's platoon. We find out those guys were from a local casino, meaning Sakuya definitely gambled all her money away and lost big time. She also bombed her exams recently, so honestly, she really needs to sit down and study. Sakuya apologizes to Riselia for bailing on their mission yesterday, though it makes total sense why she could not make it. She was way too busy gambling her life savings away.